I read the Middle East Eye report, and it is definitely very disturbing. So India's relationship and its diplomatic stance under the Modi government is very unambiguous, Neelu. India sided with the America-Israel axis against Iran. And as the world is aware, that was a disaster in terms of foreign policy. If it manifests that the fact that India is going to continue to engage with Israel by providing it with ammunition which will help basically Israel to create the infrastructure, the military infrastructure that can only further pulverize the innocent Palestinians who have been butchered, and we know how many have died, including thousands of children and women, that then it makes us frankly look like an accessory to the horrific crimes that are happening. You and I knew about it, but if Mr. Modi doesn't know, then I think both the foreign minister and Mr. Modi should resign, because they don't know what is going on in the world. So that's point number one. Point number two, if they knew about it, it is terribly unprincipled, immoral, and unethical. So bottom line, it's a very compromised situation for Mr. Modi and his government. They can't pretend that they did not know.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Remember those scenes where Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni were exchanging toffees over the caramel diplomacy? But do you know of a serious story which has been brewing in the middle of Iran war? And we came to know about it because of Italy. Yes. Thank God that the protesters in Italy ensured that the story was out. Now, I'm going to show you a screenshot of the story of Middle East Eye. And that has become viral on the social media because the activists with the boycott, divestments and sanctions movement and No Harbor for Genocide, which is called NHB, are raising the alarm over what they describe as a flood of military supplies from India to Israel after 6 shipments of suspected military-grade steel were identified on multiple vessels en route to weapons factories in Israel. Can you imagine? Prime Minister Modi saying, we believe in dialogue and diplomacy. Hum yuddh nahi, buddh mein vishwas karte hain. And what does he do behind the back? He is supplying military-grade steel to Netanyahu so that the artilleries and the bombshells can be made. Now, the shipments, activists have said, and thank God that the activists spoke to the press and that's how the story was out. Shipments, activists said, amounted to around 806 tons of military-grade steel and could produce up to 17,458 artillery shells for the Israeli military. Now, according to the movement, 3 of the shipments carried by the Geneva-based Mediterranean shipping company, that is MSC, are currently being held in Italy, 2 in Gaio Toro in the region of Calabria and 1 in Cagliari, Sardinia. These are the 2 ports in Italy where the Indian ships are held back, where authorities have held the cargo for inspection. Now, 2 other shipments, the movement said, were being held in Gaiola Toro, where authorities are being pressed to inspect the vessels. Meanwhile, the shipment worth 206 tons of military-grade steel was rerouted from the Mediterranean to Sri Lanka, and the shippers appear to be seeking an alternative route to reach Israel. Now, No Harbor for Genocide said that all 6 shipments originated from RN Steels and Energy Limited, based in Aurangabad, that is India, and were ultimately headed to a key weapons manufacturing facility of IMI Systems, now known as Elibit Systems Land, in Ramat Hasharon. Now, these shipments were an estimated $1 million left the Indian port of Nhava Sheva, also known as Jawaharlal Nehru Port, located in Maharashtra between January and March of this year. And the activists have said that we are now seeing a flood of military supplies from India to Israel. Now, what has happened today, and that is the latest development, that Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister of Italy, she has summoned the Israeli ambassador. And what has transpired between the two, we do not know, but it does go to show that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has hidden this big secret from the country. And remember, he was on a trip to the Five Nations, where we saw all the camaraderie between the prime ministers. Then those the moment of the Norwegian press showdown. Then came the Melody Toffee moment, the caramel diplomacy. But what was really on? Did Prime Minister Modi go to Italy? And that's what the people on the social media are writing, that did he go to beg Meloni that please release the Indian ships which are held at the Italian ports? So we'll try and understand this entire diplomacy and the positioning of the Indian government as far as the Iran war is concerned. Joining me this evening is columnist, author, and former spokesperson of the Congress, Sanjay Jha. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for joining. And this story is really disturbing, as it does because of the Middle East Eye, which has done the story. And a lot of people are writing on the social media. What would you really like to say on this particular story? What does it go to show?
Well, Neelu, to start with, good evening. And even your dog seems to be terribly upset. My dog is at the moment relatively quieter, but I'm sure that he accedes to your dog's sentiments as well. But let's get serious. I read the Middle East Eye report, and it is definitely very disturbing. Now, I will wait to see how this story escalates and whether the MEA responds to it. But the truth is that it is disconcerting for a very singular reason. The International Court of Justice has categorically mentioned that countries should be cautious and circumspect in engaging in any trade of military or any hardware that will enable Israel to continue with this program of genocide in Gaza and including in the West Bank. Now, we all know that Mr. Modi went to Israel and he made his speech in the Israeli parliament, and the war started within the next 48 hours. So India's relationship and its diplomatic stance under the Modi government is very unambiguous, Neelu. India sided with the America-Israel axis against Iran. And as the world is aware, that was a disaster in terms of foreign policy. Not just in terms of human rights violations, not condemning the political assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei, but overall, India's conduct has been shambolic, and I'm being very charitable when I say that. This particular incident that has been reported is, if it manifests that the fact that India is going to continue to engage with Israel by providing it with ammunition which will help basically Israel to create the infrastructure, the military infrastructure that can only further pulverize the innocent Palestinians who have been butchered, and we know how many have died, including thousands of children and women, that then it makes us frankly look like an accessory to the horrific crimes that are happening, which is why I believe.
I remember on the social media and a few reports which came out, and there were reports of how Indian ships were being rerouted, and especially the ships which were meant for Israel. But what happens? I mean, does the story go to show that Prime Minister Modi or the Modi government has been hiding on this all along? In the middle of the war, if these ships are traveling to Israel to supply the military-grade steel, the entire country didn't know. Has Prime Minister Modi hidden this big secret?
Well, you can't really hide it. And I'm sure that, let me tell you, the government knows it can't hide it. It's basically all these very sensitive matters. Because, see, this is a transshipment, right? if indeed these steel and other heavy equipment was being transferred through the ships, there is no way that it can remain a private confidential secret at all. I mean, there is documents of shipment that are there in the public domain. So I don't think it's that. I think really it's a media, really the mainstream media of India, that will blacklist this kind of a report. Now
No,
I
because
can tell you,
this story came out in the public domain because of the dock workers, the
yeah,
dockyard workers who protested. And that's how,
yeah,
and they were taken into custody. Then Georgia Meloni went and protested. And that's how this came out in the public domain. Otherwise, nobody
yeah.
would have come to know what's happening.
Well, let me tell you, full marks to Giorgia Meloni for one reason. She's been, along with Pedro Sanchez of Spain, the Prime Minister of Spain, these leaders have been in the forefront of publicly taking a very clear position, and not just political or diplomatic, but even ideological. They've said that we totally are going to stand against what Israel is doing. And they have talked about not just breaking off defense contracts, etc., with Israel, but even threatening, hey, listen, let's break off a diplomatic relationship if it comes to the brink. So I think these are leaders in Europe who have taken a very categorical, explicit position. Now, here is the problem. Now, because they have taken a position, if the ships have really been stopped in Italy, that's consistent with Meloni's foreign policy. And you got to applaud them at a time when the major grand Western nations have been, for a long time, they were actually blindsided. They pretended to be in denial, and much later woke up to the reality that what was happening in Gaza was horrific. It was like apartheid and genocide, and in fact there is an arrest warrant out for Benjamin Netanyahu, and they now have woken up to their moral obligations. So Meloni has been superbly consistent. Now I don't know what really transpired,
No,
because
but
we get,
as Meloni, now Prime Minister Modi till yesterday was with Meloni. He was on a trip to Italy. And at that time, a lot of people on the social media writing that Prime Minister Modi must have gone to beg and kneel before Meloni that please release those ships. But the biggest question right now is, and what I'm reading on the Middle East Eye, is that the stalled shipments in the Mediterranean, activists have said that they highlight how India has stepped in to help address the Israeli military supply shortfalls during the past 2.5 years of war in Gaza, despite the January 2024 International Court of Justice ruling urging states to avoid actions that could assist Israel's military campaign. Now, do you think that and this was a declared genocide by the United Nations? So can India now be dragged to the International Court of Justice for this?
well, let me tell you, if this is established, it basically means that India would be sending out a message, a very brazen one, that they do not care for that advisory, which is why I mentioned it at the very beginning, that I'm a little surprised, because this is some audacity or effrontery to, when you have got a clear message from the International Court of Justice that please do not support Israel during this time, because it will be seen as being an accessory or aligning with a power which is blatantly executing genocide on people. That will make us look like a morally compromised country. But here is the point that we need to note, that under Narendra Modi in particular, India has tilted very, shall we say, clearly to the right-wing government of Netanyahu. And please remember this. And I ask you to go back to that issue, Neelu,
Right.
of Pegasus. India has become an importer of not just defense, but a lot of cyber security and surveillance systems from Israel. Pegasus was a spyware, and although the matter was handled, I thought, very shabbily, right up to the Supreme Court level, without any, clear verdict being given. The truth is that the government of India refused to participate in that entire investigation, even with the Supreme Court. right? And the government has never denied that it did not buy Pegasus. So India and Israel have got aligned. I also feel that because Mr. Modi went there, and if you notice, he went to the UAE, which is, by the way, again, another part which is very hostile to Iran, right? The relations there are pretty botched up. So here is the problem, that Narendra Modi, as India's prime minister, is sending out a message to the rest of the world and to the Middle East that India is on the side of Israel, notwithstanding the accusations of genocide, the arrest warrant against Netanyahu, or the fact that Israel today has done many acts which are terribly illegal and continues to probably threaten regional peace in the entire Middle East.
No, but Sanjay, does this story also not go to show, because there were speculations when Prime Minister Modi went to Israel, all were asking questions that did Prime Minister Modi know about Israel attacking Iran? Now, does this story also mean that apparently, or probably this story could be another evidence to show that Prime Minister Modi would have known that Israel is going to attack Iran?
Well, let me tell you, if he did not know, then I think it's the incompetence of the foreign policy officers of India and India's foreign minister, that when the whole world was talking about it, that the attack is imminent, it was in all the newspapers, it was on all digital media. You and I knew about it, but if Mr. Modi doesn't know, then I think both the foreign minister and Mr. Modi should resign, because they don't know what is going on in the world. So that's point number one. Point number two, if they knew about it, it is terribly unprincipled, immoral, and unethical. So bottom line, it's a very compromised situation for Mr. Modi and his government. They can't pretend that they did not know. And I can tell you, when war is going to happen in 48 hours of your presence and you have no idea, or you're pretending that you don't have an idea, that goes to show that this is nothing but essentially taking a very theatrical stance, that pretending otherwise. But I think this kind of what I call as brazening it out doesn't really work. People are perceptive, people are discerning, and everybody knows that ever since Mr. Modi became prime minister, we have become pro-Israel.
Right. But now coming back to the recent five-nation tour of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he went to various countries, Sweden, Netherlands, then Italy. Now there were some high points. We don't know what were the high points, what were the outcomes. There is no way to assess whether the trip was a success or a failure. But we did get to see a lot of embarrassment as far as India is concerned. Look at what happened with the Norwegian press reporter. She asked a question, he happily walked back without answering. What kind of a moment was it, according to you? And how would you summarize that moment?
Well, I think it's a monumental embarrassment. It's a mammoth moment of awkward, a very, shall we say, ill at ease situation for the prime minister, and awkwardness for the country as a whole. Let's look at the bare facts. Nobody that I knew of Hel Ling at all. And now she's a global celebrity. And India's right wing called her a foreign agent or George Soros sponsored, whatever. I think that the truth is that India's prime minister has never held a press conference, right? Now, Norway happens to be, paradoxically, the country that's number one on the World Press Freedom Index. Now, you ask the Modi government and they will trash the index, saying the index itself is rubbish. Why? Because we are being compared to Palestine and a couple of other countries. But the truth is that a country that calls itself the mother of democracy needs to behave like one. You can't then be a father of dictatorship or essentially epitomizing authoritarianism. Now, Mr. Modi not addressing a press conference for 12 years has been normalized in India as no big deal. And you know, the BJP spokespersons and all the leaders and the supporters say, why do you care? The people love him, he's winning an election. But hang on, winning an election has got nothing to do with accountability or with fielding tough questions from an independent media. So that's embarrassment number one. I think, what was she asking him? Excuse me, will you answer answers on human rights? Now, Neelu, go back to the point that whether he was in Netherlands or in Norway or whichever country he visited, there were protests outside. What we see on television is an extremely manicured, sanitized version of Mr. Modi sitting and, reading off a teleprompter. Journalists all over the world ask questions of the leaders. Let's be honest, even the most discredited leader of the world currently, Donald Trump, does five or four press conferences in a day. He's always in front of the media, whether he's making a blunder or whether he's making another faux pas. He's talking to the people. Mr. Modi chooses not to do so at all. And this is now becoming for the country an awkward situation, because a leader is expected to communicate to the media. That's how news and information reaches out to populations in various corners of the world. I think Hell Link's position questioning was not at all wrong. The explanation given by the MEA was absolutely bizarre, absurd, and atrocious, talking about India's civilizational heritage to defend why we don't answer questions was ridiculous. The world knows where we are ranked 157 in the World Press Freedom Index. The world knows that the Reporters Without Borders has been saying that the media in this country is operating in a very dangerous environment. The entire global community of media is aware that in India, journalists are threatened. There are FIRs, defamation cases. Journalists like yourself and Ravish and many other, Abhisar and many other people have moved to digital and to podcasts, and you're doing fantastically well. That's a different story. That you were compelled to, you were pushed out of the mainstream media is also not a fact that anybody can conceal from the Modi government. We know how many RTI activists have been hounded. Right now, the Modi government, as we all know, attacking the opposition, the big media is completely sold out. Everybody knows how NDTV was taken away from Dr. Prannoy Roy and handed over to Gautam Adani. Now, listen, we can go on and on, Neelu. But what is the truth? The truth is, in our country, we treat democracy as some kind of a sideshow. An election happens, but even now the elections are getting suspicious and are rigged in more ways than one. The conduct of the Election Commission is an absolute farce. So what democracy are we really talking about? So the truth is,
no, but the brazen manner Prime Minister Modi chose to just walk off the stage in Norway, and then he sends his envoy Shibi George for a defense, and that was such a poor defense which was not convincing, and he ends up making a fool of himself, and then literally that reporter walks out of that room. Now, is that some kind of a turning point? And look at the way our mainstream media started behaving after that. All the TV channels started showing personal details about Heliling, and then talking all sorts of nonsense about her, that why did she ask a question and all of that. What are we ending up into? I mean, what is this media all about? And is nobody worried? Forget Prime Minister Modi or forget BJP, but no one in the country is worried about the state of media.
Well, I can tell you the big media is largely corporate owned. We all know it. Or they're politically very affiliated to the BJP. Or they're ideologically bending towards the saffron thought process. What is the truth? The truth is the corporates who own big media will subscribe to the Modi government shamelessly. To borrow from LK Advani, you're asked to bend, but you'll crawl, and you'll crawl happily. Now, ask yourself this question, that why will they, frankly speaking, question the government when the consequences can be extremely deleterious for them? They get government advertising. Many of them have got other businesses which are much bigger than what media gives you. And think about it, all big media today sound the same. And today, if all channels sound the same, that is not freedom of press. That's the power of broadcasting subsumed by a government. As you know, there are, today I would like to make this point in your channel, that a newsroom is resembling a BJP war room, right? Why do we call it Godi media? The watchdog has become a lapdog. So
Absolutely.
if this is the state of the media, I have said it before and I'll say it again on your show, Mr. Modi has survived as a prime minister or continues to win some elections because of the role of media in this country. The opposition is not heard. Mr. Modi's extraordinary disasters are not even being talked about. The government has been a failure on economic policy, especially on jobs and farmers, etc. Foreign policy has been a flop. I mean, India is in dire straits today. I mean, the dollar, where the dollar rupee is. I mean, we can probably do a program for 10 hours non-stop where the
No, in fact,
mainstream
I was
media.
right. No, in fact, we've discussed these issues. I don't even remember. I've lost the count how many times we've spoken about these issues. But I also want to come to that melody moment. I don't know who advised Prime Minister Modi to carry a packet of melody chocolates for Meloni. What does it go to show about the diplomacy, the way it is conducted? Is it now more dependent on the viral moment? Is it now more dependent on the hashtags rather than some serious talk?
Well, I will always remind everybody about what L.K. Advani said about Mr. Modi. Now, Advani was a veteran. He had sharp political instincts. So when he said that Mr. Modi is an event manager, what was he telling the people of India? Expect a lot of atmospherics, a lot of drama, a lot of theatrics, histrionics. And that's what Mr. Modi does all the time. From tears down to suddenly getting nostalgic. I mean, he is par excellence when it comes to nothing but he's a performative man. He is what in English language is called as a snake oil salesman. He will sell anything to anybody. Now, and by the way, you got to credit Modi with one thing. He doesn't pretend not to be doing what the world is accusing him of, right? So we all know that he's out there playing to the gallery, manipulating the media, telling people where to stand. Big media follows the commands of the PMO. Everybody knows that, right? All the TV channels sound the same. Mr. Modi has no qualms about not doing a press conference. He is not at all awkward about speaking off a teleprompter. Now, in India, you can get away with it. Abroad, people are not used to it.
No, but I
Which is
also want you to talk about this melody frenzy, where in the newsrooms we saw anchors gulping down melody chocolates. Then the
yeah.
entire this melody mania, I just couldn't understand. Is this diplomacy or is it some sort of a tamasha? And then to top it all, CNBC TV 18, I saw a story where the vice president of Parle was saying he never expected this. And Blinkit, people were ordering Melody chocolates and they were running out of stock. And then to talk about another aspect, that Parle real estate, the share prices shot up without any link with the Parle chocolate. Now, all this was stage managed, or do you think that that was a surprise moment for everyone?
Well, I clearly feel that Mr. Modi is now slipping and he is on a slippery slope. Whoever advised him to kind of, I think this is a word play, Melody and Melanie, right? It's a word play. Somebody told him this will look very cheeky, it'll look a little quirky, it'll look amusing, and therefore you'll be seen as a very cool guy. I mean, this is trying to play the cool dude kind of. I mean, I'm sure those are what is
Cool
advised.
guy, or he's looking for virality, the viral moment. हम
Yeah,
क्या कर ले viral हो जाए.
Yeah. So basically, everything is done for what? Modi is a cool guy. Listen, he's talking to a foreign leader. He's giving a chocolate, and they are laughing. And it's like saying, this guy is the guy to lead the country. Look, there's a war on. India's economy is in dire straits, but India's prime minister is such a cool dude. If that was their intention, I can tell you, is backfired badly. Knowing the BJP, they will use the mainstream media to even make this into like, ooh, a strategic breakthrough in diplomacy. But let me tell you the truth. The people of India know what they're going through today. And it's not just about oil prices. In general, it's a mess. Tell me, if a couple of young people start a cockroach Janata Party whose followers exceed the BJP from what I read last, it tells you the extent or the magnitude of current angst.
Their X account has been blocked. Their X account has been blocked today.
There you are. And by the way, Hell Link's account also got blocked, right? I mean, this is India has become totalitarian. they will be calling all these social media companies, Meta and X and whatever, and saying, block these accounts. We don't want any escalation of this negative publicity against us. And these guys will comply because they make money in this huge consumer market of India. Now, this is basically the story, Neelu. That end of day, Mr. Modi and his government have throttled India for 12 years, and the world knows it. Why do they attack Rahul Gandhi every time he goes abroad, right? They say he's very anti-national because he's critical of India. One is because they have an inferiority complex. Mr. Modi, unlike Rahul Gandhi, you may not agree with Rahul Gandhi's content, some of the stuff he says, that's your personal opinion. I believe he's done a good job and he's gone abroad personally. Why can't he? I mean, whatever he says in India is what he says abroad, right? What you say in India goes abroad on social media at the same time. So if he's saying it abroad, frankly, it doesn't make any difference. But the BJP gets very insecure because he can do things that Mr. Modi can't. Simple. Mr. Modi can't do a press conference. I can't imagine Mr. Modi addressing Berkeley or Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard. No way. Can you imagine Mr. Modi doing a Q&A with anybody? No chance. What will he do? He'll have a teleprompter and he'll read some kind of a speech and people will say, kya speech bola? So I think the right wing has a major inferiority complex. Therefore, they will get into this anti-national tirade. Now, anybody, so if you support Helling today, they'll say, you know what? The protocol is that you couldn't ask question. Even the Norway Prime Minister did not answer the question. What they will not tell you is, assuming if it was a protocol, Norway's Prime Minister held a press conference later, right? Mr. Modi did not. And the gentleman who spoke on behalf of the MEA, God bless him, he has been tutored in a terrible way. That's not the kind of media training a foreign service officer is expected to have, because this kind of absolute, the right word, frankly, for it is very inappropriate. It's called bullshit. It can fly in India, but that kind of unadulterated nonsense is not going to be absorbed by anybody abroad. So I think Mr. Modi and his trip on a perception parameter has been a complete failure. But of course, the mainstream media will tom it as a great, outstanding success of his very shrewd and conscientious diplomacy. God bless them all. But the truth is, he hasn't held a press conference, and India is not a democracy.
Just one more response from you on the particular story with which we started, the Middle East Eye story, where India is sending military-grade steel to Israel. What do you think is the biggest takeaway of that story before we wind up the interview?
Well, for me, I think the biggest worry of that will be if that Middle East Eye story is 100% factually established. And I hope India's media talks about it. I hope the Congress party talks about it. They should, because then it's a violation of a very principled stance of the International Court of Justice that talked of genocide. If India is still demonstrating an audacity to say, well, we'll contravene that and we don't care for the consequences, reputational, diplomatic, political, or the fact that we basically abandon any hopes of ever leading the global south, then it's a compromise of India's own national integrity. We'll have to wait and follow this story through. I would like you to do that, because it's going to be then a very shameful day for all of us.
Absolutely.
Because everyone knows what Israel is doing. I mean, people can support Israel ideologically or for whatever reasons they want to. But what's happened in Gaza is genocide, and that cannot be denied. It's ethnic cleansing, is apartheid of the worst order. And by the way, it's not you and me saying that. Israelis are saying that. There are Jews in different parts of the world who have said it. They don't believe in Zionism. It's a very different politics going on there. If India has played footsie with that, well, that will be a tragedy.
I'm also waiting for some kind of a response from MEA. So far, I don't think any of the Modi ministers are going to talk. They're all busy with the cabinet meeting, which has just happened. So let's see what is the response which MEA gives on this story. Thank you so much, Sanjay. Always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you.